These are the stories that wake us up and keep us going. To countries where terrorism still lives. Stories that bring us closer to the conflicts and policies of the other side of the world. And the lighter side of the motherland's beauty. Its people, their journeys, beliefs, and cultures. People who believe in doing it for themselves, who strive and believe in our country, and in challenging themselves because of a need to grow. This is SABC News.
For the farmer, fire sometimes epitomizes a new beginning, purifying and cleansing the ravages of winter. With the help of the Children of Fire, Mita is now a social worker manager and helping other survivors to unleash their potential.
People should just allow people who are disabled or disfigured or whatever to be who they are.
Now happy and a bit more confident, Ntabi Singh helps around at the Children of Fire with chores.
People must come with a full heart to give, not to do the selfie, ah shame, here's me and a burn kid.
Join me, Rifio Wemwila, on Bopelong every Saturday at 17:30.
Catch all these and more every day on Sports Live at 8:30 p.m. on the SABC News channel.
Media Monitor. The title says it all.
We do have a dilemma here because Lesotho is a sovereign country. I don't think it is the obligation of South Africa's media to even tell the people of Lesotho what's going on in Lesotho.
Join our panel of experts as they unpack and monitor all the leading and breaking news stories making waves in the print and social media platforms. That's Media Monitor with me, Alicia Jali.
Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
Healthy food is not always the cheapest food option, and so making the healthy choices, the easier choices, remain a health challenge for South African children.
Bipolar disorder is said to affect 1 in 100 people.
Low back pain, the most common spinal disorder, affects about 8 out of 10 people at some point in their lives.
Back pain persists for more than a week or two. Seek advice.
I'm Dr. Cyril Mustau. Watch Health Talk every Saturday on SABC.
Zoom into Africa. This is Mali. The president is Mr. Ibrahim Boubacar Keita. Mali got independent from France on 20 June in 1960. The population is more than 16 million people. One of Mali's major languages spoken is Arabic. Monetary unit is CFA.
Media Monitor. The title says it all.
We do have a dilemma here because Lesotho is a sovereign country. I don't think it is the obligation of South Africa's media to even tell the people of Lesotho what's going on in Lesotho.
Join our panel of experts as they unpack and monitor all the leading and breaking news stories making waves in the print and social media platforms. That's Media Monitor with me, Alicia Jali.
Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
Information-hungry viewers stay with SABC News, as issues on the West are different from issues on the East or here in Johannesburg. So it is not surprising that people who follow the news know that there are two things for sure: that anything can happen, and SABC News will tell you when it does. Because we keep the nation fully informed. We are SABC News.
Started off my early career as a journalist with the Rand Daily Mail in Johannesburg, which was a career I'd hoped to develop, but other things got in the way, so I married and came down to live here and got involved in preschool education and the training of adult women. And today I suppose I have a career in the development field. In my reporting days I'd done quite a bit of work on projects in Soweto, and I said to a couple of mothers, wouldn't you like a preschool for your children? They said they'd love a preschool for their children, a nursery school we called it in those days. They knew nothing about nursery schools. I knew nothing about nursery schools, but we all wanted one. And that's actually how it started. Well, our trainers and our teachers in the early days were asked to come up with a name that they thought would be suitable. And they thought Ntatayise, which I believe means broadly to lead a young child by the hand, seemed to us to be the most appropriate thing we could call the project. The farm had funded the single nursery school, but now we were expanding into a training project, training other adult women. And I had to set about looking for funding, which we got for the first 14 years of existence from the Bernard van Leer Foundation in The Hague.
They see Jane as the mother of the nation because she is the one who has given their children the foundation, especially in education. And also she has also empowered women to have skills. Even if they are not educated, they've got the skills. Like when we teach them here in the courses, they learn how to make improvised toys out of scrap materials.
I think it was because of the success of the beginning that we even ventured to think of expanding. The women who had been trained responded so well to the training. They were so full of enthusiasm. They were so full of initiative. They had so many of their own skills that the preschool developed into a lively, happy place with the children wanting to come, children developing, and the women developing. And it was on the strength of this first preschool, and then the other 2 or 3 that opened in the district, that we felt we could expand, and that actually we had the most wonderful human resources on which to start building early childhood development at that stage for the wives of farm workers and for farm workers' children. All these women are specifically trained by us and by other non-government organizations in early childhood development, which encompasses a much broader field than just activities for children. It includes health, hygiene, nutrition, committee training, financial management, child development, as well as the activities one does at a preschool. The teachers are all drawn from the communities in which the preschools are based. The vast majority of the teachers have had very limited access to formal education. A number of the women, specifically on farms and in the further rural areas, are barely literate. And this in turn has led us to develop specific training materials, specific training courses, so that we can base our training on what people know, so that from the beginning they can feel pretty good about themselves.
gore ka nako tsohle o be le boikokobetso o be le tshebedisano mmoho le batho bohle bo setsang mmoho le bona mmoho le bana.
I would think we've trained and had trained approximately 35 trainers, and we will have worked consistently with about 4,000 women. And we reckon that
This is Newsroom. We'd like to apologize for our late start this morning, but hello and welcome from Johannesburg in South Africa. I'm Sam Marshall. This show is live and broadcast from our studios in Auckland Park. We are also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. Today we continue focusing on the xenophobic attacks that seem to be escalating in nature. We chat to the Deputy Mayor of eThekwini. We also have a Gift of the Givers, and we speak to the United Nations, and the debate on statues just keeps raging on. But first, let's get the day's news with Anine Domel.
Good morning, Mal. Let's just have a look at the stories making headlines today. The army has not been deployed in KwaZulu-Natal to deal with Durban's xenophobic violence. Police Minister Nathi Nhleko says military intervention will, however, take place once it is required. At least 46 people have been arrested and up to 7,000 people are living in tents provided by the provincial government for those displaced by the violence.
The police is, of course, to react to criminality that gets conducted under the circumstances. And therefore, where necessary, we have got to redeploy and reinforce and look at the best that we can to try and contain the situation and stabilize the situation.
Two security guards who have been linked to the death of a teenager who died during a xenophobic attack are expected to be in court today. The 14-year-old died Monday night during a looting incident in Lindelan outside of Durban. The two men are expected to appear in the Ntuzuma Magistrates Court. Police have opened a murder investigation. Meanwhile, a peace march will be held by religious and political leaders to the Durban City Hall tomorrow. This in a bid to stop attacks on foreign nationals. KwaZulu-Natal's provincial government says the march will be a stand against xenophobia and an expression of commitment to ending the violence. Stage 2 load shedding is likely to continue until 10 p.m. this evening. Eskom downgraded its load shedding back to Stage 2 after raising it to Stage 3 from 6 till 10 last night. The utility says additional units had to be taken out of service for unplanned maintenance caused by technical faults. Meanwhile, the trade union NUMSA says construction workers are expected to return to the Medupi power station today. 1,700 workers will be reinstated after they were fired following an illegal strike. NUMSA's General Secretary Ivan Jim has warned that the murder of Chris Nkosi is an indication of internal problems affecting Kusatu. The Gauteng Secretary of the Transport Union Satawu was gunned down on Monday night on Gauteng's East Rand. The home of the union's president, June Dube, was petrol bombed on the same day. Jim, who was briefing the media on NUMSA's forthcoming socialism conference, said it condemns any violence against members of unions. Remember, you can find all of those stories on our Newsroom Facebook page. Just search for Newsroom. You can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Sam, over to you.
Thanks, Anine. Now, the humanitarian aid group Gift of the Givers has responded to the crisis in KZN by moving groups of foreign nationals to safety. Joining us now from Durban to give us the latest is Gift of the Givers East Africa Operations Manager, Dr. Abdulrazak Hashi. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us here on Newsroom. Just give us a sense of what the current situation is at the different refugee camps and the work you've been doing on the ground overnight.
Yeah, thank you for welcoming me. Actually, the things in this time, it is a little bit calm. It's not like yesterday or last night. But on our side, as a humanitarian organization, we are trying to help on the side of the need of the what's called IDPs. I mean that the foreign nations need it. So that's the only things by this time we are busy with.
Dr. B, get a sense, and you've also mentioned it now in your response, that things are a bit calm, but are they under control?
Yeah, the police under the management of the municipality, they are busy with, actually the city municipal, they are busy with controlling everything since yesterday. And actually they were trying since 29th of March, because since these things started in Sipingo, the city mayor and the other authorities, they were busy with trying to calm these things down, because these things, it was just started with a few people, and now it looks like it's increasing to the all surrounding area of Durban. Even we got some information that it has been affected some people in between the Maritzburg and the Greytown. So it's a little bit becoming more and more increasing day after day. But the authorities, they are trying to deploy security, what's called the law enforcement everywhere, and they are trying to cooperate with the nation and what's called the foreign nation together, that they can create at least something to understand each other. But it's look like the foreigners, they are becoming more and more attacked every time and every minute, though the what's called the authorities, they are trying for their side to actually sort out this issue.
Reports suggest that more than 2,000 foreign nationals have been displaced. Just from your sense, from the work that the Gift of the Givers are doing on the ground, is that number accurate, or do you have a sense that it could be more?
Actually, it is a little bit confusion of collection, the database of because the people are in different places. But what's more, they can be more than, because they're increasing every time and every minute. Refugees, they were not staying in one place, they were staying in different locations in KwaZulu-Natal. So actually the things has affected them everywhere, because you see that this township, which was a peace place, now changed to be a violent place. So the person, when the violence happened, they cannot stay in that place. And again, remember, there's a lot of people, most of the foreigners, they came from the civil war countries. And these things of actually torturing them and all these things, it is reminding them back to home, like Rwandese community, Burundians, Somalians community. There's a Liberians community also. Actually, they are not much, but they can remind it's very bad, and it's affecting even the young kids, children, and the women, because of these things. They were thought that they were inside in their own families, and they thought that they were together with their brothers and sisters as an Africans, but things are now changed in different ways. They look like, because when they see that there's pangas and butchering of other human beings in front of them from the same nation or from the same Africa continent, it look like it will remind them back to home, and it's not good for even the younger generation or the leader of tomorrow to see all that issue. So most of them, even before the things faced, before these things actually nobody attacked them, but they ran away from the place. They feel like a threat, and they call us sometimes by phone, and they told us that please, they need our help. And some of them, they have been actually affected and evacuated from the home that they were staying.
Doctor, very quickly, we're running out of time. You on the ground, you're getting some of the foreign nationals to safety. How long do you envision that operation to continue, getting those people that are in dire need, that need to be taken to safe places? How long do you think that will Gift of the Givers will still be doing that?
Actually, we are working with the authority of the municipality here in Natal, in Durban, and actually the MEC of the Safe and Security, the mayor, and the other authorities who are concerned with this. Our duty is just to fulfill the need of these vulnerable people, but the other issues of the what's called security and how this thing they're gonna be, how this thing in the future gonna be, it is in the hand of the what's called the government and the authority of this what's called city, because what we are actually doing for ourselves is just to help these vulnerable people for their needs, because some of the people, they never had even a food to eat, but so we are providing the food, we are providing the other necessities such as blankets, the children's nappies and other things which by that time they need. Remember, the place they are staying, it's not a place that has been planned by human beings to stay. It is a soccer ground. So, what's called, they need a lot of things. And actually, I'm requesting my side on opinion, if the, what's called, our kin and the others, what's called, community leaders can intervene in this issue, because this, it look like it's African to African, and it is becoming more and more worse. Under the king, we are all under the king, and our king and the other religion leaders and the others community leaders must intervene in this issue, because it's not only for government, it is for the all South African people. They have to. Doctor, we're going to leave it there. The country is a great country.
For sure, Doctor. Thank you very much for joining us from our Durban studios. That's Dr. Abdurazak Hashi, who is the Gift of Givers East Africa Operations Manager, talking to us about some of the work they're doing in Durban in taking some of those individuals that might be in harm's way to places of safety. And if you want to contribute, you can. It's Gift of the Givers, Standard Bank, Pietermaritzburg, and of course the account number is 0521372228, and you can email or fax the deposit slip with full contact details for acknowledgement purposes. All the contributions are tax deductible, and of course, let me give you that number very quickly. It's 0800 786 911. Now, just to recap on the xenophobic attacks that is still dominating the news, religious and political leaders are planning to hold a peace march to the Durban City Hall tomorrow in a bid to stop attacks on foreign nationals. KwaZulu-Natal government spokesperson Tommy Ngwenya says the march will be a stand against xenophobia and an expression of commitment to ending the violence. Around 7,000 foreigners have fled from their homes in the townships around Durban since the attacks began 3 weeks ago, and at least 5 people have been killed. The provincial government says the police will be ready to secure the city for workers and commuters today, following running battles between foreigners and locals in the CBD yesterday.
The city resembled a war zone, with burning tires and barricades of rubble, and on the sidewalks, the injured. It began with attacks on Ethiopian and Somali-owned shops on West Street. Police used tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse the mobs. All shops were ordered to close. As police battled to gain control, the violence spread to other parts of the city. There were bloody clashes in the Point area as well.
I don't care. They have forgotten history. The before how it has been for them.
Isn't good things to chase African to African. You see, we all African. Black, you see, the skin is all black.
Meanwhile, government has assured foreign nationals that the violence will be brought to an end. But plans are in place for those who wish to leave the country. The State Security Minister has refuted claims that the violence could have been prevented through intelligence gathering.
Intelligence services are hard at work. If there are lapses, will own up. But if there is a lack of response on other parts of the state to deal with the issues, they pick it up. It does not necessarily mean that they are not doing their work.
The recent spate of attacks against foreign nationals in some parts of KwaZulu-Natal province must be condemned in the strongest possible terms by all South Africans.
More police reinforcements have been set in.
We'll be discussing the xenophobic violence in Durban with the Deputy Mayor of the eThekwini Municipality, Councillor Nombuzo Shabalala. Okay, let's take a look at your tweets. Please do remember to send us your views on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Let's take a look quickly from King Bafana, I think at _Bafana. We would never solve these xenophobic attacks when we still discriminate against each other as South Africans just because we come from different tribes. There's another one from Monday that says, as a South African, I'm disgusted by the xenophobic violence currently taking place here. There is no excuse at all for xenophobia. And then we've got one from Chuwe Mwini who says, hashtag xenophobic SA, hashtag xenophobic attacks. Hashtag xenophobia must fall. I always pride myself to be an African first before any geographical definition. And there are some interesting pictures yesterday. It comes from I Love Mornings. It says, join us in tomorrow's march against xenophobia in Durban from Curry's Fountain at 10 a.m. and to the City Hall. We're going to have a chat to the Deputy Mayor of eThekwini in a couple of moments. He goes by the name of Nombuzo Shabalala. We're going to be talking about that march. Now, the situation remains volatile in Durban following episodes of violence and looting. So far, the violence has claimed at least 6 lives, including a 14-year-old boy who was shot 3 times during a looting spree in Lindelani Township, just outside Durban. Yesterday, one of Durban's busiest streets came to a standstill as clashes between police, foreigners and locals continued. Religious and political leaders will tomorrow hold a peace march to the Durban City Hall in a bid to stop these attacks. Today, from our studios in Durban, we are joined by the Deputy Mayor of eThekwini Municipality, Councillor Nombuzo Shabalala. Deputy Mayor, thank you very much for joining us here on Newsroom. And maybe it would be prudent to start this conversation by getting an update. We did hear from the Gift of the Givers East Africa Operations Manager that things are a little bit calm, but he's also used the words that the attacks seem to be spreading and there's more to come.
Thank you very much to South Africa and the viewers at home. I just want to assure you that as much as we have these challenges that are facing us as Durban, but the situation, it is stable in Durban. And we are trying all our level best to make sure that we assure our citizens as well as the brothers and sisters from Africa, because we believe we are one continent and we should not be fighting one another.
Ma'am, we seem to have a culture of marching. We march for almost anything. Whether we're toying around issues of unemployment, whether it's strike action, there's a march. Tomorrow we're having a march again. What do we hope to achieve with this march, and what will the end result be at the end of it?
This march is a sign of commitment, especially to say that we want peace, peace in Africa. The reason for us to call for the peace in Africa is because we believe that we are one nation. The only issue is that we are just divided by those boundaries that were not created by ourselves. The boundaries that divide us in Africa were created by those people who wanted to colonize us. Now we have to call on peace. And the issue of peace march that is going to take place tomorrow, we believe that it's a commitment that we are making, both our side as the South Africans and also our foreign nationals, because we believe we have to march together to show the world that we are united and we are fighting this demon, because we believe this is just demon that is driven by few individuals that we don't know really what they want to achieve at the end of the day. Therefore, after the march, we will definitely be signing the pledge of commitment that is committing all our citizens and also all that will be participating in the march. It will be led by the Premier of our province and the Mayor of our city, Councillor Ngumalo.
There are some other issues that have come to light. We've seen a security delegation this past weekend in the Durban area assessing the situation. We now know that Navi Pillay is heading a special committee that will look at the reasons behind these xenophobic attacks. But why are we being so liberal, or maybe the word is, why are we not calling it what it is? Why are we not calling it xenophobic violence? We're still talking about words around criminality, we're using other words, but what is the term of reference that we should be using from a government perspective for the violence that's happening and erupting all over South Africa?
We must remember that the word xenophobia is an English word. And also, when you look in terms of the xenophobic, it should be affecting everybody without looking on the issues of color. But this one, we can also look at it as like the black-on-black violence that has erupted. But now, in this case, it's called that the South African vis-a-vis the African continent, which is not really something that we should be proud of. That's why we are saying we need to march against it and also make sure that we educate our communities to say that they must understand where we come from. We are here, we are today because we have fought to be liberated in this country. And apart from that, our brothers and sisters in the continent, they have helped us during the dark days in South Africa. Therefore, there is no need for us to fight alone, because really this is not something that we can be proud of. We are saying it is something that we all need to fight against, and also call upon to our people to say that please stop these xenophobic attacks. We call them criminal activities. The reason being that if then it was just a xenophobic, why looting?
Deputy Mayor, we're going to leave it there. We've run out of time, but we'll be watching and crossing to that march tomorrow. That will be happening, of course, in Durban, as you heard the Deputy Mayor of the eThekwini Municipality Councillor Nombuzo Shabalala say that it will be led by the Premier of KZN. Okay, now the xenophobic violence in Durban has left thousands of refugees displaced and several people killed, many of whom are killed and have the right to be in the country. Now, the UN Refugee Agency yesterday sent an assessment team to the refugee camps. Joining us now from our Pretoria studio is United Nations Refugee Agency Senior Regional External Relations Officer Tina Jelly, who will tell us more about this. Tina, thank you very much for joining us here at Newsroom, and I hope I got your surname correct. Let's talk about that assessment of the refugee camps and what we are expecting to find there.
Yeah, we sent a team down to Durban to look at the assistance that's being provided through the provincial and municipal disaster management. And UNHCR will look at maybe some of the gaps and see where UNHCR and other civil society partners can come in and help assist these people who've been displaced.
We seem to be still confused about terms of reference. Very quickly, explain to us the difference between a refugee and an asylum seeker.
Yeah, so I think people refer to many of the foreigners in the country as illegal, but many of them are refugees and asylum seekers. Refugees are people who've been forced to flee their countries because of conflict, civil war, or also because of persecution based on race, religion, political opinion, ethnicity. So they're here not by choice, but because they've been forced to flee. And an asylum seeker is also someone who's been forced to flee. It's just that they're waiting for a final decision from the relevant government department to actually grant them refugee status.
What many might know and some probably don't know is that South Africa has signed an international agreement to assist foreigners who enter the country. Is government doing enough to protect and assist these skilled foreigners?
Yeah, South Africa is signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention and the 1969 OAU Convention on Refugees. And South Africa has one of the best refugee legislations in the world, the 1998 Refugees Act, which grants refugees rights, just like all South Africans, except for the right to vote, including freedom of movement and the right to earn a living. I think the challenge comes with the implementation of those rights, because it hasn't really been made clear to the public that refugees do have these rights in this country, as well as obligations.
Very quickly, yesterday we heard State Security Minister David Mahlobo talking about intelligence and that something could have been done to prevent the rise in xenophobic attacks. From a UN perspective, do you think that is a possibility that there might have been intelligence, or that we can stop xenophobic attacks before they spread the way they have spread in South Africa?
Yeah, I mean, what's happening in Durban is not new. We've seen more attacks like this since 2008, and we do have an early warning system in place. But I think what happened in Durban is more of a perfect storm of different elements coming together, and I don't think anybody could have predicted that it would get this out of control so quickly. But UNHCR welcomes all the statements made by senior government officials and the actions that are being taken to try to rein in the situation and get it back under control.
We heard this week the ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe talk about refugee camps, and there might be a need to set them up to create a safe place for those that are being attacked. Your assessment of that statement, and do you think that is the correct action?
I think for the people displaced in Durban, they do need temporary safe havens where they can be assisted until we can work on reintegration. But in terms of refugee camps in South Africa, I don't think that will happen because of the rights guaranteed under the Constitution and the rights under the 1998 Refugees Act, that refugees should have freedom of movement. And let's face it, living in a refugee camp for a very long period of time is not good. It's a waste of human resources. Many refugees have skills, entrepreneurship that they can bring and contribute to the economy, and putting them in camps and keeping them dependent on international aid is really not a solution, as we've seen in other countries.
Tina, research conducted in January says there's about 315,000 refugees and asylum seekers from many African countries in South Africa. We've also heard this new term called Afrophobia, which is quickly becoming a common term when describing these attacks. Why are African foreigners being attacked as opposed to other nationals?
Well, I think the reasons why are very complex. There's various socioeconomic issues related to poverty and unemployment and things like that that are contributing to some of these xenophobic attacks. But I think that what needs to be done is there needs to be a concerted effort on the part of government together with the UN and civil society and religious groups to really try and address the issue, to do education awareness campaigns, to try to demonstrate that actually having foreign nationals, including refugees and asylum seekers, can actually be a benefit to the economy and not just a burden.
What's the difference in terms of reference when you use Afrophobia as opposed to the word xenophobia?
Yeah, I think, well, for UNHCR, we're using the term xenophobia. I think Afrophobia is a new term that I've just recently heard in the media coming up. But what we have seen are many foreign nationals, mostly from African countries, that are being targeted.
Now, there's a march planned tomorrow in the city of Durban. You talked about interventions and education and leadership speaking out. Is this march, in the greater scheme of things, going to help address the issues that are on the ground? Or potentially could this add more fuel to what is already a burning fire?
Well, of course, we don't want anything to add more fuel to the fire, but I think that people coming out and saying, not in our name, we're not going to allow this to happen in our country is very, very important. We have heard that some people have been afraid to speak up in defense of the refugees, and I think that the more that we can do to show that we actually do welcome foreigners in South Africa, and that this kind of behavior is not going to be tolerated is most welcome.
Tina, we're going to leave it there, but thank you very much for joining us from our Pretoria studios. That is the United Nations Refugee Agency Senior Regional External Relations Officer, Tina Jelly, talking to us about the study and the assessment that's currently underway from the UN. Now, let's take a look at the front pages from around the globe. In the US today, President Barack Obama will remove Cuba from the list of state sponsors of terrorism. The White House announced Tuesday a key step in his bid to normalize relations between the two countries. Moving to Europe, the International New York Times, American troops returning for the first time since 2011 said they were stunned by the state of Iraqi army they had once trained is in such disrepair. And in Israel, the Jerusalem Post reports Israelis across the country will mark Holocaust Remembrance Day with memorials and ceremonies on Wednesday evening and Thursday. And the theme of this year's commemoration is the anguish of liberation and the return to life 70 years since the end of World War II. Okay, let's take a break here on Newsroom. You don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. Thank you for choosing to stay with us. Now, the debate around statues still continues. The Freedom Front Plus says the removal of the statue of Paul Kruger from Church Square in Pretoria would be the beginning of a vicious cycle surrounding the country's national monuments. The FF Plus was at Church Square to support a protest by mostly Afrikaners in front of the monument last week after vandals covered two of its bronze statues in bright green paint. Controversial Afrikaans singer Sinette Bridges chained herself to the monument. She was supported by fellow musician Steve Hofmeyer. According to reports on social media, the pair sang Die Stem. Chairperson of the Freedom Front Plus, Peter Groenewald, joins us from our parliamentary studio in Cape Town. Sir, thank you very much for joining us. Let's talk about this issue that's become such a contentious issue. It's spread all the way from Cape Town. It's now affecting the country. Do actions by people like Sinette Bridges, a lot of people consider to have extreme views, and people like Steve Hofmeyer, do they help?
I didn't hear your final question, but you asked why they're doing the actions, if I could stand it correctly. Firstly, we must say that you can't just think that you can destroy and vandalize certain statues and monuments in South Africa and there will be no reaction. The reason is quite clear, because there's a reason why there are certain statues on certain places. So if you refer to the reactions of Ms. Bridges and Mr. Steve Hofmeyer, I think it is their constitutional right to do so. And the reason why I say that is that, you know, the preamble of South Africa's constitution says that South Africa belongs to all who live in it and united in its diversity. So it starts with the knowledge and the admittance that we are different people in South Africa with different cultures and differences. And the question is that we must unite in those differences. And that is why the Freedom Front Plus also said that if you say that I belong in South Africa and South Africa belongs to me, I'm a white man, I'm an Afrikaner, then you can't say, yes, it is good enough, but then you must abandon your history, because each and everyone has a history, whether you like it or not.
Can I interject there very quickly? And I think fundamentally we don't disagree on this point, but people like Sinette Bridges, Steve Hofmeyer, they're known in the public space to have very extreme ideas on race, on where South Africa finds themselves. Would your cause not be advanced if it was somebody with, for lack of a better description, had a cooler head about things? Because both these figures are very polarizing currently in the landscape. And I know the issues of statues is a very emotive one. We can talk about it politically too. But wouldn't it make more sense to say that maybe what we should do here is create that dialogue? And we've heard so many leaders talk about dialogue. But when you use community leaders like a Sinette Bridges and a Steve Hofmeyer, does that not derail the conversation?
Well, that's why you have the Freedom Front Plus, that we are approaching this whole issue on a cool head approach. And I say again, it doesn't mean that I agree with what they say about race and everything. In fact, I disagree on some of those issues. But the fact of the matter is, the focus point now is the monuments and the statues. And we must not allow ourselves to be distracted by sidelines to say, yes, but what do they say about race and that sort of things. The focus point must be our statues and our monuments. And you know, it is very important, and what you're actually saying is true, that leaders must be very careful what they say. I mean, we've just saw the attacks, the Novobia attacks in KZN. It is a matter of, it was reported that the Zulu king said that they don't want any foreigners in KZN. And now we must say, you will reap what you sow. And that is why we say in the Freedom Front Plus, we must be cool-headed when we talk about statues in South Africa. And we must start with where we started in the beginning. You know, in 1994, with the negotiations of a new constitution, the whole issue of statues, history, place names and everything has been negotiated. Just to refresh our viewers' minds, that, you know, there were a lot of name changes. For instance, the Verwoerd Dam has been changed to the Gariep Dam. If you look at our airports, DF Malan Airport, for instance, in Cape Town has been renamed the Cape Town International Airport.
So
in Johannesburg, it was a... No, but my point is, there was a negotiated settlement on these issues. Now, of course, it is actually evoking certain emotion. The actions by members of the EFF, of course, is evoking emotions from certain people, and people will react differently on that.
We've run out of time, but I'm going to steal just a couple of minutes, and I want you just to very, very quickly answer this question for me. I'd like to have a reaction very quickly to the unveiling of the Sefako Makgato statue yesterday in Garankuwa at the new Health Sciences University. And then number two as well, very quickly, a lot of these reaction to the statues are born frees that have no connection to the past. Just very quickly a response from you.
Firstly, I welcome the first issue. I think there should be more statues erected in South Africa when it comes to the heroes and the people of the struggle. We have said it since 1994. We must get the balance. The newborns, the problem is our educational system. They don't receive history at our schools in a balanced way. It is a one-sided history, and there's a lack of knowledge of the true history of certain statues in South Africa. And the Freedom Front Plus say, if we really understand the real history of all the statues and the monuments in South Africa, there will be more mutual understanding and more mutual respect for each other's differences.
Okay, so we've got to leave it there, but thank you very much for joining us. And of course, that is the chairperson of the Freedom Front Plus, Peter Groenewald, talking to us from our studio in Cape Town. Now, just to take a look at your tweets, please remember to send us your views on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. And this comes from Mademoiselle Anocha, who says, I don't understand why we are still going on about statues when Africans are being killed in the country. Our next tweet comes from TV Rukotso, who says, at St. Lise, they must not divert attention because we haven't changed our minds. At hashtag statues must fall. This debate, of course, has been raging on throughout the last couple of weeks. One from T_Asiya says, South Africans are a different breed of people. They tear down statues and kill their fellow Africans. Hashtag xenophobia must fall. Hashtag statues must fall. And I think we've got a very last tweet very quickly. Okay, that was our last tweet here. Now, Joyce Kotze, the author of Runaway Horses, joins us from Cape Town today for our weekly book slot. She has worked as a radiographer on the conflict-torn borders of Southern Africa, and her interest in war and its effects stem from her own family history. The Runaway Horses tells a fictional tale of the Anglo-Boer War of 1899 to 1902, a story of love and war. Joyce, thank you very much for joining us here. We touched on it very briefly, but can you give us a more detailed synopsis of what your book deals with?
Well, it deals with the subject of war and love, because those are two of the constants that will always be with us. So I did the research very well, and I thought to start at the beginning of the century and then work my way up right through the apartheid years. So this is about a fictional family in a historic setting, the Boer War.
It's amazing how so much of what you touch on reflects directly on the situation we currently find ourselves in terms of conflict. Is it maybe ironic that your book is out now and we are dealing with the issues related to statues, internal Africa conflict in terms of xenophobia, and also just basic issues of love for your common man?
Yes, exactly. I was just saying to Eddie here that, you know, here are all the statues. Actually, they are historic persons in my book. And here they are today being vandalized. And, but you cannot destroy history. So I take the easy way out. I put fiction through the history to give the people sort of a taste of what life was like then. As youngsters, those people had to deal with the situations.
It's interesting that you've titled the book Runaway Horses, and I wanted to understand the process of thinking behind that title when in actual fact, in many ways, it doesn't really deal with horses.
No, Sam, there are some horses in it, yes, but it's not to do with horses. It's a parable between men at war and a herd of wild horses. If you don't stick to your side, if you don't get through with what you have to do and look after your fellow human beings in this war, and you run away from it, you are basically an exile. So the horses are the symbol of people at war. Maybe you understand.
Some of the stuff that you've researched and some of the things that you've uncovered that was new to you as an author, and that maybe had you reflect on your own family history and kind of where we find ourselves today. What were some of the interesting things that you've uncovered in your research?
Well, that so little was still in history about the other races who were also, had to go through this war. It was Anglo-Boer War, which it wasn't actually. It involved the entire country. That I discovered. And I also discovered about, people that do have a family on the other side of the enemy line, so to speak. There were many of them as well, like today. The world we live in today. It's a global village, and you always find people that it's divided by history.
Joyce, we run out of time. The book is available in all good bookstores. It's called Runaway Horses. That's the author from our Cape Town studios, Joyce Kotze, talking to us about her book. Look, this is Newsroom. We broadcast live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, every weekday mornings between 9 and 10 a.m. We also stream live on YouTube this time, with the show available on demand on your YouTube channel. We love to interact and enjoy your contributions and opinions. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning. I must see you tomorrow.
Information-hungry viewers stay with SABC News, as issues on the West are different from issues on the East or here in Johannesburg. So it is not surprising that people who follow the news know that there are two things for sure: that anything can happen, and SABC News will tell you when it does. Because we keep the nation fully informed. We are SABC News.
On the morning of the 21st of February 1917, their ship was rammed by a liner. Legend has it that as the Mendi was going down, members of the 5th Battalion danced barefoot aboard the vessel. 616 died that day, most of them black.
After the rapid food security assessment that was done together with WFP and FAO, we found that this is one of the heavily impacted areas because of Ebola.
Over 300 bikers from across the province making a difference in the fight against blood-related cancer.
I'm here in support of cancer, and my sister has cancer, so I'm riding for cancer.
Catch all news locally and internationally. Tune into SABC, your #1 news channel, News at 8 from Monday to Sunday.